Watch it, boys bracing. Here we go, and go hard. And go hard. Very good. The Paddler's Pod with Sam and Macca.
Hello and welcome back to the Paddler's Pod, a very special episode of the Paddler's Pod as well. Special for two reasons. One, because we actually ran a competition. We've been talking about this for so long, but we actually went and did it. And we are going to give away a $250 Viakobe voucher a little later in the episode. But first and foremost, it is a special episode because we are going to somewhat be crossing to the dark side. I have Olympic fever. I've barely slept here in Australia as I've been watching all the action in Paris unfold. And we're going to get a little first-hand experience of what it is like over there. But in the meantime, I better say hello to my co-host, Mackenzie Heinard. Macca, how are you going? How's your Olympic fever?
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for remembering me over on this side. I, since the last episode, have been feeling a little bit more positive. I did actually get sick not long after we recorded. Not long after.
Yeah, with Olympic fever.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. I was going to ask you about your Olympic fever because I know that you went through quite a procedure and were looking to get a Guernsey over there as a sports reporter, which didn't happen. And
Oh,
I was just
God.
I was
Listen,
just,
I've
I
got
was
Olympic
just checking
fever,
in.
all right.
I was
And
just
if you're in
checking in to see
Australia,
if you're all right.
Make sure you're watching the Channel 9 coverage because it's a bit like Hunger Games at Channel 9 at the moment. I've survived the cup for now, but they'll keep coming for us.
Strike has come
Macca,
back.
you've got a little bit of Olympic fever as well, actually, because you went and did a kayak race since the last episode.
I've been telling everyone I'm now a marathon paddler, so watch out, world. I'm not. I got a Nordic comfy kayak. I'm allowed to do shout outs on this, unlike the time where I got in trouble for doing a shout out to my brand on ABC Radio for the world titles. But this is mine, so I can do what I want. Stuff you all. Yeah, I did, and I enjoyed it. I do have a funny story to tell, actually, and I've actually kept
Well, then
this,
let's hear it.
Well, I was going to keep it on my chest because we can use it almost as the next Talkback Radio section that we can have some more stories on. So I might leave it for those that are an eager listener. You can hear it at the end of the episode.
Well, listen, I've got something that I want to say right off the bat as well, and it is actually an apology.
All right.
Look, I don't do this lightly, and I hate to bring the mood down at the start of the episode, but I have a confession. Last week when we were paddling in Manly Harbour early in the morning, I didn't have any lights. Normally, that can be okay because, look, you can stay in the shallows and, stay away from the open water. And normally other people in the squad have lights, but there was about 4 of the 5 of us did not have lights. I don't want to name names, but that's two-time world champion Gemma Smith. That is Mitchell Trim, and that is Jake Reese. Dean Gardner actually came along that day and he did have a light. Now, look, it was okay when we did cross the ferry channel and Dean got his torch out and spotlighted the ferry so that we weren't put in any danger. But as we were paddling a little bit further down towards Middle Harbour and the Spit Bridge, a big group of paddlers came past, and I would assume that's Squad X of a morning coming past, and your heart sinks because you just think, like, I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm letting people down. I have my life jacket on, of course. We speak a lot about that on the podcast, but I didn't have a light. And I expected a couple of people to say something, as the first person paddle past at the front of the squad yelled, "Where's your light, you?" And, I thought that's fair enough because we don't have our lights. They can say whatever they want. The second and third people to paddle past really rammed that point home as well. And again, no one's saying anything back because we are in the wrong and you have to cop it. And then, of course, we got to the back of the squad where generally the paddlers, in every squad are that little bit lippier, and there was a lot more to say back there as well. And again, I agreed with all of it, completely on your side. We paddled down a little bit further, maybe 10, 15 minutes, and turned around and started coming back. And one of the guys who went pretty hard kind of, came out of his way to paddle across a little bit and give us the same serve, which was, look, I think verbatim, he said something to the effect, which was, I said, "Where's lights?"
Like you could
And-
just pick one
and
out.
I snapped. Well, that was the point that I thought, Macca. Look, I didn't snap, but I just said, where the do you think I was going to find one in these 10 minutes, you So look, to that paddler,
aggressive.
if you are listening, I'm sorry. And you know what, to all the paddling community too, I'm sorry for not having light on my boat. This is a community service announcement to make sure that you have lights and you have your life jacket. Macca, do we think we're all on the same page with that one?
Jeez, I mean, I don't wear a light when I paddle in the dark, so maybe I'm not going to comment. I might plead the fifth.
This is the wake up call that we need, because safety is no joke, especially to that man that I did spray. But you know what, he started it.
I'm on a creek though. I don't know if there's
Okay.
any rules, maritime rules on creeks in comparison to harbours like Sydney Harbour.
Well, the creek that you paddle on has boats that do go on it, so I believe there are. But none of this is the point of today's episode. Instead, we did mention it, but this is an Olympic-themed episode. It only comes
we
around
love
once
this.
every 4 years, except this cycle, of course. It was 3 years ago, Tokyo. And we're going to be checking in with some of our favourite surf ski paddlers who are making themselves at home in the athletes' village. And Macca, that is where we're going to start. So,
Let's do it.
wee, are you ready to go to Paris?
Wee. Let's jet off.
The Peddler's Pod. Power Plays.
And you know what? That actually might not be a bad place to start, Macca. I was talking to people at work the other day about Paris, the beauty, the Eiffel Tower, the
Howdy.
Champs-Elysees. And we were speaking about the roundabout, of course, out the Champs-Elysees. And they said, gee, it must be tough to drive a car across that.
Can we?
And I thought, you should see what line bikes are like. Do
scooter.
you have that video still?
I'll
couldn't
send you the
find it.
video. We'll drop it in right now. You're going to have to go. I'm on like the slowest thing in the world. Go left. Go left. Oh, shit.
And if you do want to see that video, you can watch it on our YouTube channel right now, because it is right there in the
Talk about
vodcast
illegal.
episode of this pod. But Macca, Mackenzie Heinard, I know that you are a huge fan of Olympic sports. Firstly, how have you found the start of the Olympics? Have you been getting up in the mornings and watching some of those finals?
No.
No. Okay, well then who cares about the swimming? Because we're here for the paddling and not the slalom kind. No disrespect to Jess Fox and no disrespect to the Frenchman who won the C1 just a couple of days ago in front of his adoring home crowd. But we are all about the canoe sprint. A couple of episodes ago, on the Paddlers Pod, we did speak about those surf ski paddlers who are taking part in the program. And Macca, I'm starting to feel a bit of a sense of pride in their results and their performances. We're going to check in with a couple of them in a moment, but how do you feel seeing some of the athletes that you go toe-to-toe with ready to race on the grandest stage of all?
I feel inspired as well. I feel a little bit proud to say that I can beat Olympians. That's also nice in a sport that they choose to do. Not all the time, by any means.
And you can say that there's some Olympians you can't beat as well.
That's most likely always true as well. Just so happens that there's one sport that I'm okay at that is a little bit different to what they normally do. But that's about it. They'd smoke me and everything else.
Of course, that surf ski list competing in Paris looks a little bit like this, if I can rattle it off on the top of my head. From Australia, well, really, 3 of the 4 K4 paddlers in that K4 500 are out-and-out surf ski paddlers. That's Riley Fitzsimmons, Jackson Collins, and Noah Havard. From South Africa, we have Andy Burkett and Hamish Lovemore, both racing the K1000 and the K2 500. We have Simon McTavish in the K2 500 and the K4 500 for Canada. And of course, we also have Jonas Ecker, the king of the gorge, at least to us anyway, Macca. We are going to be having a chat a little later on with Jonas about how his experiences have been so far, because he picked up an under 23 K1 1,000 World Championship just last week as well, just a couple of weeks ago before he did get into the program. But to kick things off, it is a fan favourite. It is a favourite of both of ours. We are going to be chatting with Australian Riley Fitzsimmons right now. Well, it is the greatest sporting show on earth, and as we have been talking about, Macca and I are certainly getting in the spirit, because it's not just Australia that we're cheering on. We are also getting behind all of our surf ski paddlers who are over there racing in Paris at the 2024 Olympic Games, and we are very lucky and very grateful to be joined by one of the most core surf ski paddlers that we do have in the contingent. He is a 3-time Olympian, but I think it's fair to say that the ocean is where his heart is, and that is our man Riley Fitzsimmons, live from Europe. How are you going?
Good boys, good boys.
I love it.
Well, Riz, it is so great to have you with us at what is, the time that you have been looking forward to for so long. We are now just weeks away. So tell me, how are you feeling about your Bucks party?
Yeah, I'm probably more nervous for my Bucks party than the Olympics this time around. Yeah, it's exciting time in my life. It's been 12 years of work for me to get to another Olympic Games and have this opportunity. So yeah, super excited to race at the moment.
And just one more thing to get through, and that is the Olympics. So tell us, where are you in the world at the moment, and how are you feeling about racing?
Yeah, so we've been posted up in Hungary, about an hour out of Budapest, in a little town called Zolnok. We've been here for about 7.5 weeks now. So, the days are getting pretty long at the moment, and we're pretty keen to get over to Paris. It's sort of been, a little bit sort of, I guess we just want to get out of Hungary at the moment with the Olympic Games that have already started.
Where you are now, I know this has been a commonplace for Olympic kayakers and Australian kayakers. Have you been there for a longer time than previous years?
Yeah, this has probably been about the longest. I think I've done it 8 weeks before, but yeah, this one's definitely been close. Yeah.
And I do want to know.
That's remarkable.
That is tough.
I do want to know as well. The city, wouldn't you, Riz? You scouted out all the best bakeries. He knows the best places to go.
Oh yeah, there's plenty to go around here. Plenty.
You've somehow managed to get us on a screen, because I've seen you and the Kayak Boys have had about 6 different devices going all at the one time, really getting the Olympic fever, which this is what this podcast is dedicated about. So we appreciate you taking the time, because I had to get pulled away to, and I'm sure we all did, from watching the triathlon. So
yeah, it's awesome. How good is it? Like you sit at home watching the laptop or the TV, and you're just watching all
in your case 6 of them.
Yeah, it's really quite motivating and inspiring for us. And I think, it's one thing I enjoy about being the second week of the Games is being inspired by, our swimmers and our triathletes and rowers and all that in the first week.
Gee, do you reckon that Macca was having a crack at you or me, Riz, about the fact that we're doing this at the end of the men's triathlon? I think I might have to take ownership for that rather than the time difference.
All right. I thought I should get it on my other screen.
Look, Riz, let's chat about the racing. You're in the K4 for Australia, which has been a relatively new crew that's shown extraordinary progression over the last 2 years. How are you feeling about racing?
Yeah, super excited. I think I'm really lucky to have those 3 guys in the boat with me. Really proud of, I guess all of us as a team of how well we've developed from where we started last year. We kicked off with the 17th in the world, and then we finished off last year in 4th. And we started this year really positively. And, we've just been building every single time we got on the water. So I think the 4 of us are really excited to get out there in Paris and show what we're made of. And, we'll be taking it to the big guns for sure.
Macca and I were just speaking about your crew, Pierre van der Westhausen in there, along with Jackson Collins and Noah Havard, who are 2 names that surf ski paddlers and surf ski fans do know quite well. You speak about the journey, as a crew. What about those 2 specifically? Jackson's been kayaking for a few years now. Noah, it's only been, 2 or 3 years for him. What kind of skills have you seen from the surf kind of get applied? And having done it yourself, what's that transition like into becoming more comfortable in the kayak as well?
Yeah, look, I think when you're ski paddling, you've pretty much got 85% of the job done to become a kayaker already. I think what surf life saving gives us athletes in kayaking is probably resilience. And both those guys have got ample amount of resilience in them. If I look at both their journeys, Noah only picking up a kayak paddle a couple of years ago, and now he's going to an Olympic Games and staring down the barrel of potentially, being right up there for a chance of a medal. And then Jackson, the disappointment of not making the team in Tokyo and coming back again and making the team is massive for him. And then even Pierre, he pretty much almost dislocated his shoulder back in January, and to come back and rehab and be ready to go for this Olympic cycle, it's, massive amounts of resilience in those 3 guys. So really proud of those guys and how far they've come on this journey. And couldn't be more proud to lead them out.
Yeah, you are the front man of the boat. Do you feel any pressure at all? I know we joked about your bucks before, you being a little bit more nervous for that, but you're the staple man that's been there for 3 Olympics. Do you have any nerves on your shoulders, any pressure, or are you really just trying to, show experience at the front of the boat?
For sure. There's always a lot of pressure and nerves that, come with sitting in the front of a K4, the race plan, the strategy, everything is kind of sitting on your shoulders for the race. So, I was saying to Georgia before I left, she was kind of talking to me about it, and I think I just admitted to her. I was like, I think I'm addicted to that feeling. I think I really thrive in that environment. I think that's why I keep coming back, and I want to be in the front of those K4 boats and sitting on the start line. And, you've got, 36 odd guys on the start line that are a lot bigger than I am, and they've got big beards and muscles.
Which is crazy in its own right.
Yeah. And I kind of love that feeling of, wanting to take it to those other guys and show them what you're made of.
Riz, you mentioned the transition for, I guess, the individual athletes in the boat. Like, what about the distance that you guys have been racing as well? Australia, as a nation, has always had such a strong 1,000 meter background, but, that's really for team boats. Well, it's not part of the Olympic program anymore. What has the transition been like into, for you racing K2s and in the past K4s as well, over 1,000, to now racing over, 1:15?
Yeah, it's been wicked. Who doesn't want to race shorter races?
You'll get 200 man soon.
There's a hell of a lot of work that's got to go into a 1,000-meter race. And you guys doing long distances in ocean skis. It's
hey, you're a part of that too. Don't discredit yourself.
It's really quite similar, but it's been a big change going to the 500 meters and lots of speed and explosiveness and gym work, trying to bring up those power to weight ratios. It's been really fun though. Like who doesn't want to go as fast as they can in a big team boat? So it's been fun.
And I guess for you now, absolutely, Mark. For you now, Riz, you're looking forward to entering the Olympic Village, getting to the Olympic venue. You mentioned that it can be a daunting thing. Do you feel as though that, having been to the world's richest ocean ski week at the Shore and Partners WA Race Week, it kind of prepares you to deal with that spotlight a little bit?
100%. There's those hot spots that they're not easy to get. So I think these Olympics will be a breeze in the park.
Macca, one thing I have to laugh about is Riz said before that he sits on the start line and looks around at guys that are bigger and stronger than him. Well, I haven't paddled this week because it's been cold and windy. We have to race Riz in about 4 weeks at the World Lifesaving Championships. Have you started thinking about, racing again yet, Riz?
Yeah, I am a little bit. I mean, my sole focus has sort of been just on the Olympics at the moment. So really just prepared to get through next week and take the Bucks party as it comes, and then be ready to go for Worlds. But yeah, it's certainly going to be fun to race another World Championships for clubbies. My last one was 2018, and that was a pretty special one. So looking forward to getting involved again.
Are you worried about the work I'm doing back home?
Yeah. I'm
what
shaking
the work that
you're
not doing.
I'm going to relearn how to jumpstart again.
Oh, you and me both. I still haven't done one.
Looking across the line at people that are bigger than you reminds me back to in 2018 when we raced and you obliterated everyone. And I remember Tank turning to me and saying, like, why do you use the same size paddle as Riley? Like, you're nowhere near the same size. It's so silly.
Yeah. It's
one thing I did,
and it's like it's looking across and like even in that, they're absolute idols of mine in kayak racing as well. Like some of those guys in the German boats that have won multiple gold medals, and absolute pin-up boys, and they're kings of our sport really. So it's trying not to be sort of, I guess, overawed by what they've accomplished and sort of seeing if you can match it with them, I suppose.
One thing I did want to know is the Olympics is famous for basically no branding, and you might be the most branded athlete. I do want to know, are you able to get any of your sponsors onto any of the apparel or craft?
It's funny. It's funny you asked that. We had the paddles out this morning with the black spray paint, spraying them all up. So yeah, very famously for the Olympics, you got to have no branding, even on the inside of boats. You got to pull off stickers and stuff. So yeah, it goes pretty crazy. But yeah, there's nothing being snuck in at the moment.
The clean skin.
All worth it
Yeah.
for the end goal, Riz. We absolutely cannot wait to see you and the rest of the Australian team race. And mate, already we're so proud of you guys. We're all in your corner. We can't wait to see how you go. And thanks so much for making the time. I'm glad, Macca, that this man never forgets where he's from, and that is the surf.
Cheers, thanks, boys. I know James Tompkins is over there commentating, so I'll try to get a photo for you boys, and we'll send it on through.
Someone's going to do the hard work back
Maybe
at the
under the
coal
office
face.
now with a baguette and red wine.
Macca, it is great to check in with Riz as always. And I tell you what, I'm so excited to see those Aussies race in the K4. I've got a really, really good feeling about how they're going to go. And mate, I am so excited for Riley's Bucks just a couple of weeks later for you and I to go to the races and celebrate.
It's going to be dangerous, isn't it? They've got a lot to celebrate.
We
Hopefully
have a
one
little
thing
bit of
more.
bias. Well, that would be nice, wouldn't it? I wonder if you'd let us wear it. Look, we have a little bit of bias towards the Australians. I think we can say that on the podcast, being Australian, but we take a great sense of pride in all the surf ski paddlers that we do have going around in Paris. And this next man is certainly very close to our heart as well. He is a dear listener of the Paddlers Pod. He is someone that we have raced when we go across to the gorge as well. And he's a very, very passionate paddler, and he's an incredibly good bloke. This is our chat with American Jonas Ecker. Well, off the top straight away, back we go.
Back to the top.
You know what? Maybe we do leave this in for our listeners as well, because in true style of the Paddlers Pod, we have been doing this interview for about a minute and a half now, and we forgot to hit record. And look, this is not just especially disrespectful to any of our guests, but this is particularly disrespectful to a guest who is literally preparing to race in the Olympic Games in just a few days' time after years of training and a lifetime of dreaming of achieving this goal. Welcome to the Paddlers Pod, Jonas Ecker. How are you going?
I'm good. How are you guys? Happy to be here.
Hey, it is so great to have you. Look, we may as well get stuck straight into the big question, which we didn't actually cover in our dry run of the interview just a few moments ago. But, you know, you did just last week win the under-23 K1 1000 world title. Just a few nights ago, you were walking into the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games with some of the biggest names in world sport. You know, all those basketball names like LeBron James being the flag bearer, the swimmers, the track stars. But the question I need to know is that how disappointed were you to miss the gorge when you did say that there was a little bit of wind down that gorge course this year as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bummer. The gorge is such a fun event, and the atmosphere is just so unique and so much fun. And I've been going to the gorge for 4 or 5. I think it would have been year 6 of going down. And it's always just so much fun. I mean, Carter puts together.
I think I still beat you
Carter puts together
gorge records.
You do, yeah. I was getting close, but maybe get another year.
Jonas, you and I actually had a sprint to the line in 2022 as well. So, you know, you are a bona fide surf ski paddler. This is none of this canoe sprint guys coming into our sport. You are born and bred.
Yeah. Background. I mean, my mom started paddling surf ski and then signed me up for the sprint club when it started. So, I mean, I can thank surf ski paddling for where I am today, for sure.
Now, listen, we are going to have a little chat about that in just a moment. But the first thing that I do want to know on a genuine note, other than having a laugh about where you are, but how is the experience of the Olympic Games? You were there. You have made it.
It's incredibly overwhelming, to say the least. I mean, to go from, it's a dream, like everyone talks about the Olympic dream, and then to be in the village, around all the athletes, be in the dining hall, be on the Olympic course. I mean, right now, rowing and slalom are happening at the same venue we're at. And so it's like you're going out for a workout, and you got some of the top rowing crews in the world warming up. You have the Olympic rings everywhere. You have Paris 2024 everywhere. And then just every country, all U.S. athletes decked out in full kit. You got every country from Australia to Norway and their kit as well. And it's just, the energy is incredible and really inspiring.
So, a few questions, because I don't do any of the serious stuff on this podcast by any means. How are the cardboard beds, and have you swapped any of your uniform
I haven't so the shorter question is I haven't swapped any uniforms yet, but they have hand-up pins, and so each country has a set of pins. For the
This
US,
is the
it's our
insight
Olympic
we like.
seal. It's the Olympic seal, and then says canoe kayak on the bottom. So it's one of the more basic pins, but it's a whole market in the village and at the venue. So I think I've traded for some pins from Hungary, Norway. What else do I have? I have an Australian pin. That's just super fun because you have to collect them all on your accreditation lanyard, but no kit yet. We'll see. I kind of like what I got. But back to the beds.
Oh, no, sorry. It's a good point. We do need to cover off the beds. I was just going to say that the pins sound actually quite similar to the beer tokens used at the gorge, of course, an equally valuable collectible item as well.
It's a currency. It's a currency.
The beds have been making a lot of headlines. Are they any good?
They're horrendous to lounge on, but I've been sleeping fantastic. So, they're quite hard for sure. Like sitting on them, laying on them, like if you're just hanging out, wouldn't recommend. But the sleeping has been great, so I got no complaints. And they have one more little inside tidbit is they have these stations where they scan your body and you put in your weight and your height, and then it tells you what configuration to put your bed in, because it's in 3 different segments you can flip for different firmnesses. So to get your tuned fit or whatever.
Geez, this is high-tech stuff. You certainly don't get this when you are bunking with 6 people going to a surf ski race. Jonas, you did mention that the uniforms that the US team has before, for everyone who is watching along on YouTube, which there has been a few hundred of you since we've launched it as well, you get a bonus look inside the Olympics. Not inside the Olympic Village, because that would be breaking IOC law and we don't want to get fined. Jonas is currently in a neutral zone where he's allowed to do this podcast, but he is wearing the tracksuit. What did it feel like for the very first time when you did put that Olympic tracksuit on?
Yeah, I think we got, tailored and kitted out for our opening and closing ceremony outfits first. And I think that was the big moment for me with the US Olympics blazer from Ralph Lauren, because I've grown up watching athletes go to their games and walk through opening ceremonies with various iterations of the blazer, but to see the Olympic seal on my chest was almost like it finally felt real in a sense.
Look, I just have one more question before we actually get stuck into a bit of paddling chat. The opening ceremony, of course, the first time that all the athletes were together. Who are some of the athletes that you did get to have a chat with that you're really looking forward to? Do you have any anecdotes for us?
Yeah, shared the railing with Noah Lyles for a little bit on the boat. Aaron got a picture of my double
playing basketball.
Yeah. Saw LeBron James, Steph Curry. Did not talk to them though. I don't know enough about basketball to start a conversation. And then when we were, those are the ones that stand out to me. There are a bunch of other track and field athletes that Aaron and I watched their selections, but I am not the most extroverted individual when it comes to idols, I guess.
That's actually an interesting, reflection on the US team at the moment. I saw a vision of Anthony Edwards, the NBA star, today watching the table tennis, because he met a few table tennis players the other night, and I believe he told them that he would win 21-0. Watching the way they played today, I think that might not be the case. But is there that camaraderie across all sports?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you're in the meal hall line or getting on a bus, it's very obvious what country each athlete's from because they're head to toe in their country's kit. I think every single thing, at least for the US, at least has an eagle on it somewhere. But with that said, it's in the village, we're in suites and they're a combination of single and double rooms with a shared common space. And so I'm with a rowing athlete and some triple jumpers. And so would I ever talk to triple jumpers, or would our paths ever cross? No, not really, but gotten to know them and some other rowers, and that's been cool. But I think the biggest example of that is before this event, I had never met any of our slalom paddlers from the US. I met Austin Kiefer, of course, but none of our current team. And so just because our results or our events never coincide or overlap. And so it was fun to get to know some of them.
Isn't it funny that even at the Olympic Games, you can't be split from those rowers? I hope people are explaining the difference between what you do versus what they do as well. And actually on the rowing course too, Jonas, we've seen vision of that now that the rowing racing has begun. And one thing that caught my eye straight away is that it's quite an open course. Now, are we reading too much into this, or is there some kind of benefit to being a surf ski paddler and potentially having to deal with a little bit of wind out there?
I'd say with my experience at this venue, absolutely. I raced here last summer for the Olympic test event at World Cup 3. And it was a pretty small turnout, but we had the whole range of conditions. One day was glass and rainy and cold, and another day was super hot and sunny, and then one of the days was an absolutely nuking tailwind to a point where Aaron and I had skirts on our boat and we still filled up with water. Like we were going through waves. It was almost like doing 5x100 instead of 1x500.
So how are you feeling at the moment? We're now just a few days out from the start of the program. Of course, racing the K1000 and also the K2 500 with your partner Aaron as well. This is it.
Yeah. I'm oddly not super nervous yet. I think that'll kick in once more paddlers show up and we get on the course more. But right now, because of rowing, we're restricted to what I like to call canoe sprint jail off in the corner of the lake. We have a 1,000-meter buoy line, it's been great conditions, but it's just we're off in the corner, out of the way, as we should be right now. We don't want to get in the way of the rowers, but there's not many athletes here for paddling yet, and so as more start to filter in, I think it'll feel more real and more real. Right now, it just feels like an awesome summer camp.
How good. You must be one of the athletes that have raced as close as they could to the Olympic Games starting. I know there's probably a couple of kayakers coming out of the 23 Worlds. Do you feel in good shape? Was it a good stepping stone?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, most athletes, a lot of the, I guess, senior athletes in the overall age divisions raced World Cup 1 back in Szeged earlier in the spring. And in an ideal world, we would have been there on the line getting that race practice. But because of when our trials were, our continentals were, it would have been the third big event with big travel in less than 8 weeks, I think. And so there's too much going on for us to make it over there, as well as missing additional school. And so we made the decision to skip that World Cup in favor of racing U23s. And U23s gave Aaron and I a good set of races in K2. We had some good races. We had some less than ideal races, but altogether we came away with a fifth, which was a little lower than we had hoped, but I mean, still a good position to be in. And we got more confident in our race plan and got more repetitions in. And then the 1,000 was just a nice little confidence boost. By no means is U23 is the same competition as the Olympics, but it still shows that I have some competition.
It's an elite company, though, that you're now joined by being an under-23 world champion. Can you talk us through those moments where you cross the line and afterwards as well? There's some amazing photos that you've been posting online of just the emotion of not just you, but also your whole support team as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going into the race. I lined up for the heat. I was in the lane directly next to the reigning world champ for U23,000 from Germany. And going into the race, I was like, well, it's a heat, top 5 or so progress, so I don't really have much to lose by just seeing how long I can stick with the reigning world champ and see how I measure up. And so going out, I raced my own race plan, but kept in mind where he was. And then we finished a good, I think, 4 seconds clear of the next paddler, regardless of what heat they were in. And so I was like, okay, I can be competitive. That's a good shot. But I still knew that the heat was just the heat and the real race to start in the semi. And so Aaron and I had our K2 final the morning before the semi. And I mean, honestly, it was a little disappointing to end up coming 5th, but just trying to refocus into the semi. I was able to come away with a win in the semi, which had me a good lane. And again, I had the second fastest qualifying time. And so then that kind of checked the box of, okay, it's not just the heat that I did well in, I can do the semi too. And then I'm lucky enough to have my dad as my primary coach, in addition to the national team coaches. And so lining up for the race, he put me on the water, and his words were something along the lines of like, you know, you can race, you've done the prep. If you race your race, if you put it all up there, I think you can win this race. And so going out, just sticking to my race plan, sticking to my guns. And then on the line, and same thing, just like trying not to think of too many other athletes, just know what I'm capable of. And so when the gates dropped, gun went off. A lot of athletes have their trademark fast start. You just kind of got to let them go and know that you'll eventually pull them back. And so it was pretty much the three, myself, the German, and then an unaffiliated individual neutral athlete as the top three, way up ahead of the field. And then around about 500, I was able to edge a lead and extend that over the third 250, and then just hold on. I remember thinking the last like 150, 200 or so, it's like I can see the line, I can see the bow in my periphery, just like keep it together, keep it together, keep it together. And then crossing, it was like a second of disbelief, and I was like, oh, I'm fine. And then it all kind of hit me, and I was like, okay, I need to take a sec. And then I think one of the photos is me with both fingers in the air, kind of in celebration from the dock. And that's background for that photo is the angle that the coaches had seen couldn't quite see the angle of who'd crossed first. And so they had to wait to my name pop up on the scoreboard in first. And then the confirmation, they were way on the other side of the course, just losing their minds. And so it was a nice like moment together, just being like, yeah, it's kind of lost for words thinking about it again, but it was incredible.
It's a little bit, I do get memories pop up every now and then of you slipping on the portage. So I'm glad that it wasn't a 5,000 meter race, because that seems to get brought up on repeat. It makes me laugh every time.
They still won't tag me in that, man. Like, I'm fine with playing a canoe posting it, but like you gotta at least give me the tag. Like I'm proud of it. Got a lot of followers.
We need to spread the word. This man is building his profile, and Jonas, you are actually the latest, 1,000 meter world champion in a very long line and proud line of surfski paddlers as well. It's something that we've spoken about on the Paddler before too. I did an article about 3 years ago with Clint Robinson who reflected on that too, that essentially in the last 40, 50 years, any Australian paddler that has medaled at the Olympics over that longer distance before it was, scaled back came from a surf background. So I know it's a hard thing to try and quantify, but what do you think surf paddling has done for your sprint kayaking and I guess built that kind of base and experience of fitness that you did actually put to the fore in that world championship race?
Yeah, I fully thank surfski paddling for where I am today. My dad bought our first surf ski. My mom took up surfski paddling 3 or 4 years before I did, and then signed me up for the first summer camp up in Bellingham that Anna and I were in together. But yeah, I think as a kid, like sprint was like, it's very regimented. It's very focused. It's very not always super strict, but you have your strict workouts. Surfski is a little more dynamic. You can have more fun with it. And although I love both, as a kid who didn't always follow directions, surfski was a good chance to kind of just go have fun. And so especially the community in Bellingham is arguably one of the biggest ski paddling groups in the States. And so having that, I guess, community to tap into to get on the water and experience it together was always super fun. And I like to think that all the funky conditions I put myself in have saved me from various shoulder injuries, because I've had to develop all those tiny little muscles that you don't necessarily get from just flat water paddling.
And all that side wind that hopefully you don't get on the Olympic course. You mentioned Anna before and you not being able to be at the Gorge this year. What do you make of her result over there? We spoke about it on the last podcast quite in depth. Not sure if you had a listen given how much training's been going on, but what did you make of such a performance?
A long time coming. I mean, Anna's an incredible athlete, super devoted, both on and off the water. I mean, if she's not paddling one day, she's doing some other crazy outdoor activity, whether it's mountain biking or trail running or whatever. And so training with Anna as a kid, and then I guess when we were younger, when we first started paddling, she was always faster than me. And so it was always like, I was just trying to catch up as a kid, and then still trying to do that with Vaughn up in waves, but I can get her in flat water most of the time now.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I think she's just an incredible athlete, and I think it was well deserved. I'm excited to see how she goes at Worlds this year. We
have taken more of your time than we said we were going to, Jonas. We're so grateful. But before we let you go, I do have 2 quick questions that I think have to be asked. It was mentioned by Mac, if you listen to the last episode of the podcast, if that is the case, I I have something that I need an answer to, and that is, now that we are days out from the Olympics, how many Reese's peanut butter cups are you eating, and do you think you need to scale that back for race day?
Well, I'll let you know a secret. They only sent me 3. So
no.
I used them all to make that real, but I have found a couple in the village. So I've snuck a couple here and there, but
if Reese's are listening, that is
It's my
simply
secret.
not good enough. We need.
Yeah,
you have given them worldwide appeal. I almost bought Reese's peanut butter cups the other day. I didn't even like them, but I saw them. I thought, if Jonas is having them, that's what I need to have. Look, my second question, and I know that we are focused on racing, but do you have a partner at the moment? Are you single?
no, I have a girlfriend. Very, very happily dating. Yes.
Well, then let's leave the interview there. Jonas Ecker, we are so grateful for your time on the Paddlers Pod. You've always been such a huge supporter of the podcast as well, sharing it to your social media channels and the like too. So we're always very grateful for you. And from all of us here, and I mean the whole listening community, we are right in your corner for racing next week. We
Appreciate
cannot
it.
wait to see how you go.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
So good to check in with Jonas, but Mac, I'm filthy at races. What is going on there?
Maybe they're probably not going to ever tune into our podcast. But what is that, a sponsorship? What the hell's going on there? I want like 300 of those things, if not 3,000, unlimited.
Well, you know what?
give me
There's
the
a running
races.
joke in the office at the moment that, you know, in times of the Olympiad in Australia, things are, you know, go one of two ways. It is either an Australian act or it's un-Australian. You know, for example, you know, we've had lots of Aussie pride, lots of Australian performances. I think of the 1-2 in the swimming, Ariane Titmus and Molly O'Callaghan. I guess by the same extension, you know, Americans are, you know, they can say the same thing. For me, it is very un-American for Reese's to only be giving Jonas 3 Reese's peanut butter cups. So hopefully we can sort that out.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. That is us, especially after him talking about Eagles in every bit of their uniform.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that
Full
awesome?
That's I was trying to ask. I should have asked how he managed to get any bit of Reese's product placement on any of his attire at all. But I know that they're very strict on that come the Olympics.
Very strict.
Very, very strict. Hey,
That's right.
I do want to ask you a question. What are your
Yes.
thoughts? What are your thoughts on, we talk about Australian and un-Australian? This has jogged my memory.
Mm.
And only because I saw it on the opening ceremony, which I think you'd made mention to Jonas about walking into, where they were, I don't know if you call it sailing. Did they do anything? They didn't really walk into anything. They just stood there.
No, they did. They walked from the Sen into, you know, the opening ceremony arena. So there was a bit of a walk in there.
Well, there you go. That's why I'm not getting up for the Olympics, because I'm relying on you for the information. But what are your thoughts on the chant Aussie, Aussie, Aussie?
Oh, he really put me on the spot. Look,
I know.
You know, I think, to be honest, it kind of goes a little bit like this. At any other time of the 4-year cycle, I absolutely hate it and I can't stand it. But, mate, I would be screaming that shit on the top of my lungs if I was in Paris right now.
Yeah, it is
leading
just
some
different.
huge Aussies.
Yeah.
I don't know what is the alternative, and it's not for us to come up with. I think there's more qualified people that have spent decades trying to do that, to get that out of the national psyche with no luck. So, look, hey, if you've got any ideas, send it in. We might have a Vycobi apparel pack for you, but not on this episode, because in just a moment, we are going to be having our first ever Talkback Radio giveaway and listening to a pretty incredible story as well. Macca, we've been chatting about this one for a little while now. The Australian Paddle Australia Championships are on this weekend on the Gold Coast as the 14 Beaches race. It's ran by Paddle Queensland each year. This year it's doubling as the Paddle Australia National Titles, and it is going to be absolutely gassing. We were telling people to make sure they got their entries in, and this is the reason why, because the Southerly has ripped up the coast. And if you haven't entered, too bad, because entries are closed. So, Macca, I know you're entered. How excited are you to race?
I'm pumped. I'm glad that I went out on a limb, didn't I? Last time we spoke, and I said it was going to be pumping and it was going to be a Sudley course. It was about the only positive thing I reckon I brought to the whole podcast, and I tell you what, didn't it come true?
So what are we actually looking at for the race?
I reckon it's about 20 knots. Nah, it's
Wow.
20 knots. I'm going to check right now.
Okay,
So it's blowing south all week. It started today. which got up to around 20 knots, and then it's blowing 20 knots every day until, it's 16 and a half knots, which...
Hey, I'll tell you what, I will take 16 and a half knots if it's been blowing southerly all week. It is going to be an incredible day. And it's also going to be a really good celebration of paddling surf skis as well. This is something that Paddle Queensland invests a lot of time and effort into organising, and they've certainly put in a lot of effort to this year's race as well. And that's something that, they've really bought into. That's why they're sponsoring this episode of the podcast as well, because, they are surf ski paddlers themselves, and they want more involvement in the community too. So, Macca, listen, I've got a bit of an idea. I want to run this past you, but look, as we mentioned, entries have closed for the race.
Well, I mean,
but
as
I'm
we're
kinda
recording,
thinking,
they
well, Macca, that is peeking behind the curtain and letting people know how long it takes us to edit the episode of the podcast. So I would rather you didn't do that. At this point in time, entries have closed. It is Thursday, the 30th,
the first,
second. It's the first or the second. I don't know how many days are in July. Look, but either way, I'm thinking that if you're a listener of the Paddlers Pod and you want to race in 14 beaches,
because it's going to be pumping.
If you go down there, like you do want to race in this event, if you go down there and you tell them the Paddlers Pod said that you would be able to jump in and have a race,
you can't.
I think that we would be able to get away with that. What do you reckon?
You reckon? I don't know. On the day, I think they're pretty clear about no on the day. I reckon you could give
No. Good point. Okay, so this is Thursday lunchtime. We're recording this right now. If you get in touch with Paddle Queensland tomorrow, that's Friday office hours, then there is a chance we might be able to sort something out. But at the very least, just tell them we sent you. So if they say to you, why didn't you enter earlier? Just say that you hadn't checked the forecast, because we all know what surfski paddlers are like. Well, you haven't checked either of your casts, and you must. Everyone knows you must check your casts when it comes to racing. So look, it's going to be an incredible day. 14 beaches. It's the Paddle Australia National Championships for 2024. A lot of effort's gone into this, and a lot of excitement is around this event as well, because it's going to be a real special one for the paddling community, and a real special one if you like to get runs. It's not too late. It might be too late, but maybe it's not too late. Get in touch, tell them the Paddlers Pod sent you, and have a great day. Macca, you'll definitely have a great day. Go well.
Just watch out for the end. Bring your surf skills along. So check your cast and bring your surf skills along, because there is going to be a wave.
Well, it has been a long time coming, but we are about to dive into our first episode, our first segment of Talkback Radio here on the Paddlers Pod. And a huge thank you to everyone who got involved, shared the reels around, shared the posts, and sent us their stories on whales, because we have chosen one to win a $250 Vycobi apparel pack. In fact, just on that, Macca, it's really good gear, and it's another really good sign of just what Vycobi does for us, for the paddling community as well, that they wanted to be involved.
It is, and it's been a long time coming, so I guess we should probably apologise to Pat and the Vycobi team for the fact that this has taken almost a year and a half to get this segment off the ground. Thank
you to everyone who actually got in touch with us. We did post the episode. It took me about a week to put the link live that you could send in the form. But to those who did, thank you very much. Now, there's just two I want to acknowledge on this episode. We did have a few more entries than that. If you did get them in, don't be disheartened, because we're going to be doing this once a month from here on. We are going to be doing giveaways, and we do want to hear your story, which we'll get to that a little bit later on. But to start, Bree McCowett did send us a message, and she frantically got it in just before the midnight Australian Eastern Standard Time of closing. She said she was having some troubles with the upload. She was unable to send us a video message, but she did actually send us footage of this happening, and it is a pretty remarkable video as well. So I do just want to quickly run across this story as well. Bree said that she had this experience during COVID times in New Zealand, and when that lockdown ended and she could finally go paddling on the water, she was straight out on the water too. And because it was such a nice day, she wanted to take her GoPro. She came back in. Her mum said, no, we haven't got the time for this. You can't go back out. Bree said, stuff it. I'm doing it anyway. Look, I think, Macca, when you're being cooped up for so long, you may as well get back out on the water, right?
Go.
Although we endorsed that, and Bree certainly enjoyed it as well, her parents were starting to get pretty sick of waiting for her on the beach. They're down there, they're throwing their arms around, they're waving for her to come back in. And just as she was starting to do that, she saw a huge fin rise out of the water. and she grabbed her GoPro straight away. If you're looking on YouTube, take a look at this footage now. If you're listening on your audio, check out our socials or get to the YouTube channel. This is remarkable. A huge fin pops out of the water about 50 meters off the beach, and as it gets that little bit closer, she realizes it's a pod of orcas. She says it's extremely rare to see them at our beach, let alone see them in the shallows being so close to the shore, but they just came up right next to her ski and had a little bit of a play around it, and the footage of that is actually unbelievable. She thought about getting in for a swim, but then thought, you know what, maybe that's not for the best. But thankfully, she did have a GoPro with her to capture all of that evidence. It is absolutely remarkable footage. And Macca, although she makes it sound pretty relaxing, I reckon she was absolutely beside herself with nerves as well. What do you reckon?
Yeah, orcas are like that love-hate relationship I have for wildlife. It's like they are the most threatening creatures because you see them like they are apex predators, right? Top of the food chain, better than any shark there is out there. But I don't believe there's any recorded attacks on humans in the wild. They're only in captivity. So, I mean, history tells us that it's fine. And you see some people...
What was that doco called?
What, the one in captivity or?
Yeah. Oh, actually, that's a bit sad. We don't need to go there.
Yeah, let's not go down.
No.
How's me? I've really changed my tune. But you're right. Like you see that happening, and it's come up on my social media recently with like paddleboarders and the rest with orcas coming up to them. They're just such smart animals. And like they know what they're doing, and they're just there to have a fun time with you and while you're paddling.
But only one person could win the $250 Vycobi apparel pack on this episode of the Paddlers Pod, and that is Gregory Bowditch from the Gold Coast. He has an incredible yarn to share. Buckle up. It's a bit of a long one as well, but it is certainly worth it.
G'day guys, Greg Bowditch is my name, from the Gold Coast. This story happened about, love your show by the way.
Good to get a shout out early doors, actually.
Best part of 30 years ago, 1992-ish or something like that. I'm in Tallabuncha Surf Club, and
this is an old yarn.
Training in the morning with a couple of other guys, and pretty glassy, crisp sort of morning. Paddled out, and we're doing whatever we're doing, and all of a sudden there was this boat behind us, a fishing boat, just not passing us, just lingering behind us, and it got a bit spooky. And anyway, after a while they sort of came up and they said, oh, you know, there's a whale caught in the nets, can you release it if we give you a knife? And we went, yeah, sure. So
just
paddled out the
cut a whale free.
Guy gives me a
on
knife, and it was probably, I would say, I don't know, 4 or 5 meter, well, not huge but big enough. Jump off my ski, jump on the back of the whale. Now, the whale is just on the surface of the water.
It's remarkable.
Most of it's underwater, but it's basically just on the surface of the water. Jump on the back, and I'm right up by the blowhole. So the blowhole is just in front of me. And the first thing I notice is that, hey, the blowhole's not actually a blowhole. It's actually like a heart valve. If you know what a heart valve is, it just fits in together, opens and closes, and that was the first little thing. And then as the water washed over it, over the blowhole, it's spouting, and not only is it spouting, there's billions of tiny little molecules of water in the air, and I'm looking up in the air just above me, and there's rainbows forming in this thing. So that was a bit of a freak out, and so it came to my senses. I don't know how long that lasted, but I came to my senses and went, okay, I've got to save this thing.
Greg's had a real
so I start looking around me, and I just see how immense this whale is, and I start thinking, okay, I've got a knife, but what can I do with a knife? Can't do too much with a knife. This thing's, how can I get right under it and get right around it?
Could possibly happen standing on a
anyway,
whale.
came to my senses and went, no,
and drop it down the blowhole.
Can't do anything here. So jumped off, said sorry, gave him back the knife, and SeaWorld came along a bit later and cut the whale out. And,
not for the orcas
freed
in
it,
captivity,
of course. Anyway, as I'm paddling in, I'm late for work, by the way. I'm a teacher, so this is all happening before school.
I could
so
see
I'm
how I could
mindful
be late for
of what's
work.
happening, and I should be at school.
If it's anything like his yarns.
Hey, I'm saving the whale, so that doesn't matter. As I paddle in, to go into the surf club, I notice there's a crowd, and the crowd has gathered. Obviously, they're watching what happened out of the shark nets. And as I paddle further in, I just get to the shore, and there's local identity Andy Mack, who's just standing in the shore break. And I'm thinking, oh, cool, Andy Mack. And he's hanging on to a phone, like a special type of phone, outdoor phone, whatever, back in the day. Excuse me. And he says, all of a sudden I hear him say, and here he is, he's the whale man now. And he says to me, okay, you're live to CFM, Dean and Suki, blah, 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 tell us about the whale. So he hands me the phone, and I was a bit taken aback, and stood there with my ski in the shorey, getting buffeted around by the Tally shore break, and gave the lamest interview ever. I just knew the whole time, because I could hardly hear, and blah, blah, blah.
I don't know.
So, yeah, lamest interview.
I can tell it is.
I don't know.
I reckon it was all right.
That was it. So, put my ski up, got ready for work, and driving into work, I was working at Helensvale, so half an hour drive, so I was way late. It was like 10 o'clock, I think, by the time, 9:30, 10 o'clock. And all the way I'm driving in, I'm thinking, does anyone know? Maybe someone knows, maybe someone heard it. I knew that my co-teacher would take my class, so that was all good.
Rising to celebrity status here.
So, wondering, walk into school, sort of slink down, didn't want to let the boss know, slink into the school the back way, get the first step of my classroom, and all of a sudden, 2 classes erupt. Yay, well man, well boy, yay. That hurt, obviously. Someone had listened to CFM and told them what was going on, so that was it. I had to go through the whole thing then and tell them the whole thing, so not much work got done that morning.
I wonder if anyone gets done, Greg.
So that was pretty good. Of course, I had to retell the whole thing. The next day, last part of the story is that the next day in the local bulletin and all the local media, there was a warning that said, if ever you come across a whale, don't jump on the back of it, just leave it, because, if you try and cut it out and it gets towards the end, it's going to feel that it's free and start spinning, and off it goes, and you get caught in it, you just get dragged along with it. So yeah, every time I tell that story, I sort of think, did this really happen? It just seems,
great
it was 2 years ago, and it's a bit of a tall tale, but that's what happened. Keep up the good work, guys. Well done.
A remarkable yarn from Greg Free Willy Bowditch to literally ride a whale. It sounds like something out of what's that movie? The James Cameron movie, and the big blue people and
the Avatar.
The Avatar.
The Edge of Water or whatever, the one that took years and years to come. It's like
Was Free Willy the whale, or was Willy the boy who helped the whale get free?
That's a question.
Look, either way, I think that is our new nickname for Greg. Greg Free Willy Bowditch. That is a remarkable yarn.
Ken's
a $250 Vicobie apparel voucher is coming your way. We will be in touch with you by the time, I guess, everyone's hearing this. That is first class, Macca. And you know what? That is exactly the kind of yarn that I wanted to hear on this segment. That is unreal.
We need that type of content, don't we?
Do you know there was something that hit me straight away when he was talking about being out at the shark nets with a knife, and he said something along the lines of, who does that? Who's got a knife out near the shark nets? Macca, more times than one, in the middle of the night, after a big night of drinking, you'll put a knife somewhere in your pants or in between your teeth, and you have paddled out of North Cliff Surf Club and gone out to the shark nets. Can we talk about that on the podcast?
I don't know if we're talking about a lot of illegalities on this podcast, aren't we? I have gone out at night on a double ski. There may not be a missing shark can or not. I know that. Actually, no. Let's just stop there. There's no need.
Well, do you know what? The house has been knocked down. No doubt the search has been called off. Macca knows nothing about it. Neither do I. And Macca, again, to the International Olympic Council Committee, if you are listening, the IOC, I really want to stress both of those interviews did not happen in the Athletes Village. Please do not come for us. We know what you are capable of, and we certainly do not want to see it. Macca, that was the very first Talkback Radio. If you were listening along thinking, damn, I actually should have submitted something because I had a story that could have gone into the running, well, then you will be hearing about our next topic. We'll talk about that on the next episode of the podcast as well. We are going to be bringing back our Coach's Corner segment as well too, ideally for the next episode, okay? We will have more vouchers to be giving away to our favourites. The same thing is going to be happening. The question on each episode, we'll put up a form. You send in a video just like Greg. That means we can play it out on the podcast as well. And then we will be giving away some vouchers while also answering some questions. Macca, I feel like we're finally starting to get the hang of this.
We are. I sort of forgot about the question corner coming back in and how we're going to do these on rotation. So I wonder if I just hold off my story for another 2 weeks.
You know what? Leave it for another 2 weeks. If you've got a question that you think we could ask in or answer in any way, send it in. Macca, we may not even get to do the question corner next segment. Coach's Corner, whatever we called it, on the next episode if people don't send it in. So make sure you do. And stay safe in the meantime. Make sure you wear your life jackets. Make sure you put lights on your boat in the dark.
And don't jump in on whales by the sounds of things.
Oh my God, what a yarn.
I love it. Well, thank you all for joining. Until next time, take care and enjoy. Happy paddling. Get to the Gold Coast race because it's going to be pumping.
Very good.
Paddler's Pod with Sam and Macca.